Before those few people could react, a strong gust of wind suddenly hit the faces of the two people at the front. Who? The two people at the front were shocked. It was difficult to retreat in this small room. They shouted angrily and had no choice but to block their arms in front of the door. Bang! Bang! Two huge collisions sounded, and at the same time, there were two shrill screams and the sound of broken bones. One of the high-level spiritual warriors who dodged in time was lucky. Under Jason's attack, only his arms were shattered. The other low-level spiritual warrior was not so lucky. His arms were constantly broken, and his entire head was also damaged by Jason. With one blow, it was turned into a rotten watermelon. Bang! 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 Jason, with the spiritual power in his body constantly surging, rushed into the crowd of the Wild Wolf Adventure group outside the house like a tiger among sheep. When Jason was an intermediate spiritual disciple, he was able to kill Boza, an intermediate spiritual master. Now that he was promoted to a senior spiritual disciple, after taking the violent potion, the group of adventurers outside the room could not even reach the level of a third-level spiritual master. None of them is his enemy. Bang! 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 The spiritual power in Jason's fist was raging. The adventurers of more than a dozen Crazy Wolf Adventure group in the yard outside the house were lucky as long as they were hit by Jason's fist. Some only had their limbs broken, and those with bad luck were all killed on the spot. There were constant screams of ouch, ouch, and so on in the courtyard. In just a moment, a large number of the adventurers in the venue fell down. Ah, Captain, he is dead at this moment, several adventurers who broke into the house screamed in fear after seeing Kiwan's body. The leader is dead? There was a panic in the crowd. In the hearts of all the members of the Mad Wolf Adventure group, Kiwan, the strongest man in Kodo Town, has always been the cornerstone in their hearts and the most powerful existence. Now after hearing that the leader was killed by the Black Shadow in the house, the remaining 10 people in the yard were suddenly filled with fear. Devil, ah, he is the devil. I don't know which adventurer screamed in the crowd, threw away the sword and ran out of the yard. Ah. The Mad Wolf Adventure group, which had been killed by Jason in a matter of seconds, was already full of fear of the Black Shadow. When they heard that Kiwan was dead, they felt extremely timid. Feeling the influence of the escaping adventurer, they all screamed immediately, and rushed out to escape for their lives, regardless of surrounding Jason. In a matter of moments, all the members of the Mad Wolf Adventure group in the yard were gone, leaving only a few injured members rolling on the ground and wailing. Jason looked around coldly in the yard, activated his body in vain, and rushed out of the Wild Wolf Adventure group station in a few steps. After evading a group of patrols rushing to the Wild Wolf Adventure group station, he came to Kodo Town. Under the wall, he turned over and rushed out of the wall of Kodo Town, disappearing into the vast wilderness. Standing in the dark wilderness, Jason looked back towards Kodo Town. Due to the huge movement of the final battle, countless houses in Kodo Town lit up their lights. A smile appeared on the corner of Jason's mouth. This was the first time in his life that he was fighting so vigorously. Not only did he not have any fear or panic in his heart, but he was full of fighting spirit. It's a pity that in order not to attract others and to deal with G1 as quickly as possible, I not only used the violent potion, but also applied a 4th-level low-grade hemolytic poison on the tip of the sword. Otherwise, I really wanted to have a good fight with G1. Fight. Jason shook his head slightly with a hint of regret on his face. Originally, the first bottle of 4th-level elixir I prepared after my rebirth was a hemolytic poison, just in case. I didn't expect to use it so quickly. In this world, it's really unpredictable. Then Jivan's strength is probably about the same as that of Baroque. Fortunately, he didn't let him use all his strength. It's a pity. If Jason were to assassinate Jivan again, Jason would still be the same. He would do this. After all, as the leader of the Mad Wolf Adventure group and the most powerful senior spiritual master in Kodo Town, Mad Wolf Kiwan, his strength is naturally extraordinary. If he is allowed to display all his strength, he can join forces with Mad Wolf for adventure. With more than a dozen spiritual warrior-level adventurers stationed at the station, plus the guards from Kodo Town, no matter how strong Jason was, he would never be able to get away with being surrounded by so many people. Without Kiwin and the others, I'm afraid the Mad Wolf Adventure Group will be disbanded, and my father should be safe. After standing in the wilderness for a moment, Jason turned around and ran towards Talon City. 2 days later, early in the morning, the office of the Spiritual Masters Union in Talon City. Macy, who is the manager of the Spiritual Masters Guild, is currently sorting out information at his desk. Since Macy was taught a lesson for improper handling of the fight between Jason and Troy a few months ago, the injury on his body only healed a month ago. He has now restrained himself a lot and is immersed in the official duties of the Spiritual Masters Guild all day long. Isaac, the president of the Talon City Spiritualists Union, is quite satisfied with Messy's changes. Messy is much calmer now than before. This makes Isaac sometimes even feel that Messy was offending Jason, and later being taught a lesson by Jason was not without merit, and in a sense, it was not necessarily a bad thing. Dong dong dong. At this moment, there was a slight knock on the door. "Come in," Messy said softly, his eyes continuing to scan the documents in front of him. "Sir, Carlos, the president of the Kodo Town Spiritual Masters Union, would like to see you." A guard walked in from the door and said respectfully. "Carlos? What is he here for?" Messy frowned slightly, put down the document in his hand, and said, "Let him come in." "Yes." The guard left respectfully, and after a while, a gray figure appeared. The old man walked in and looked at Messy with a hint of respect on his face. This old man was Carlos, the president of the Kodo Town Spiritualist Union. Although Carlos himself is a senior spiritual master and the president of the Kodo Town Spiritual Masters Union, and Messy is only an intermediate spiritual master, within the Spiritual Masters Union, the status of the manager of the Talon City Spiritual Masters Union is higher than that of the Kodo Town Spiritual Masters Union. The status of the president of the Spiritual Masters Union is high. "Haha, sit down, Carlos." Messy pointed to the chair in front of the desk and said, "Carlos, it's rare to see you come to Talon City." "Why, what's going on in Talon City this time?" "Haha." Carlos smiled and said, "Messy is in charge. This time I came to Talon City to meet President Isaac." "Oh, I want to meet President Isaac. The president is in the office now. Let me inform you later." Messy said with a smile on his face, "Let me just say, if you Carlos is not a rich man in Kodo Town, why are you coming to Talon City? You really have nothing to do without going to the Three Treasures Palace." "Ah. Haha, where is it?" Messy closed the document in front of him and put it in the drawer of his desk. Then he stood up and said, "Follow me. It's a coincidence that you are here. The president will be here tomorrow morning. I have to go out for something. If you come a day late, you may not be able to see him. By the way, do you have anything to do with the president?" "Well, it's not worth mentioning," Carlos said with a hint of anger on his face. With a look on his face, he said to Messy, "It's mainly because of a team called the Blade Adventurers in Talon City. Last time they ignored the laws of the kingdom in Kodo Town and injured my people, and they didn't harm our healer guild at all. To put it in perspective, when I came this time I mainly wanted to report the situation to President Isaac." "Blade Adventurer team?" Macy frowned, paused slightly, and then continued walking forward. "This Blade Adventurer team has a good relationship with Master Jason, and the Blade Adventurer team itself is a 3-star adventurer team. I don't think the president will do anything to the Blade Adventurer team because of a mere Carlos. This Carlos, I'm probably going to be disappointed this time." Messy turned his head and glanced at Carlos behind him, thinking to himself, but without saying much, he came to Isaac's office and knocked gently on the door. "Come in." President Isaac's majestic voice came from inside the room. Messy opened the door and walked in slowly with Carlos. "President, Carlos wants to see you for something." After entering the office, Messi reported to Isaac Hui, who was writing furiously at his desk, and then stood aside. "Oh? Carlos, I haven't seen you for a long time." Isaac put down the pen in his hand and said to Carlos, "What's the matter?" Carlos glanced at Messi aside and saw Isaac had no intention of letting him leave. In his heart, Messi's position in Isaac's heart was even higher. He took a step forward with a flattering smile on his face and said, "Mr. President, the thing is like this, before the Lunar New Year festival a boy named Jason broke into Harry's gambling house, which is legally operating in Kodo Town. Didn't you say the Blade Adventurers team? Why did Jason get involved?" Messi on the side heard the name Jason, his brows couldn't help but jump slightly. After President Isaac heard about Jason, his face showed a trace of seriousness, and he said softly, "Is the Jason you are talking about a black-haired boy?" "Yes, it is a boy. He turned out to be one of us. He is from Kodo Town, and now I heard that he is studying in Talon City." Carlos showed a trace of doubt on his face. "What? President Isaac, do you know him?" "Nothing, you continue." Isaac said lightly. "Well, after the boy named Jason broke into Harry's gambling house, without asking for any reason, he suddenly injured the management staff and several guards of the gambling house, and then walked away. His behavior was extremely bad. The villain received the news after that. He immediately led the guards in the town to inquire around, and finally found traces of Jason near the square in Kodo Town. At that time, Jason was dueling with Toss, the third leader of the Mad Wolf Adventure Group. Crazy Wolf Adventure Group? Duel? Isaac spoke again. Yes, Jason's father, Renault, used to work at Harry's gambling house. Later, he was fired by the gambling house because he offended the Mad Wolf Adventure Group. Carlos, who was in a rage, did not notice at all that Messi's face was on the side. He had become a little serious, and President Isaac frowned slightly. The young one rushed in immediately, but he didn't expect that Jason not only openly defied law enforcement, but also took action again, injuring several law enforcement guards. After saying this, Carlos's face turned red and his tone became even louder. Because of the fierceness, they were frothing at the mouth, and Messi and Isaac on the side were frowning more and more. At that time, Talon City's Blade Adventurer team was also present. They seemed to be Jason's friends. After helping Jason injure all the law enforcement guards around him, Lin Yen, the captain of the Blade Adventurer team, relied on his own. "He is a heavenly spiritual master, and he will seriously injure me. He has no regard for the spiritual masters' union and the laws of the kingdom. I have been lying on the hospital bed for more than a month before I recovered. This group of lawless people is really," Carlos said angrily. He knew that President Isaac was a protective person. Lin Yen only forced him back and slightly injured him, but he said it was extremely pitiful and said that Lin Yen didn't take the Spiritual Masters Guild seriously, and his purpose was to arouse President Isaac's anger. Looking at President Isaac's frown, Carlos was secretly proud of his shrewdness. "Then what happened to Jason?" "I remember that the Blade Adventurers team seemed to have returned to Talon City before the Lunar New Year festival. Didn't you go to trouble Jason later? And what about the Mad Wolf Adventure Group?" Messi couldn't help but asked. Carlos couldn't help but feel a little disappointed when he saw that President Isaac didn't react angrily. After hearing Messi's question and answer, he respectfully replied, "Please remember that the Spiritual Masters Guild is an organization that serves spiritual masters." Purpose: he did not continue to cause trouble for Jason, but after he recovered from his injury a few days ago, he immediately reported to President Isaac and asked him to make a decision. As for whether the Mad Wolf Adventure Group went to find him, I don't know much about Jason's trouble, but 2 days ago, Jason seemed to have left Kodo Town and headed towards Talon City. Phew. After hearing the news that Jason was fine, Messi and Isaac couldn't help but let out a long breath at the same time. Messi, since Master Jason left Kodo Town 2 days ago, it is estimated that he will arrive in Talon City this morning. You can take Carlos to the city gate. Remember, you must do everything beautifully. Yes, don't let Master Jason have any dissatisfaction with our Spirit Master Guild in his heart, do you understand? Isaac spoke up. Yes, President. Messi looked at Carlos beside him and said coldly, Carlos, come with me. This Master Jason? What's going on, Carlos? I couldn't help but feel a little baffled. After hearing Isaac's words, I felt a little something wrong in my heart. Now, I have no problem dealing with intermediate spiritual masters, but if I have to deal with high-level spiritual masters, without using violent potions, the outcome is not so absolute. As for the heavenly spiritual master, basically there is no possibility. Not far away, the outline of Talon City has appeared in front of Jason. Along the way, after experiencing several fierce battles in Koto Town, Jason has been practicing and analyzing. Own strength. My current physique is level 3, which is equivalent to the body of a third-level spiritual master. After being promoted to a senior spiritual disciple, my body and speed are not inferior to any senior spiritual master. Only in terms of attack, although I have understood the second level of spiritual power spray based on Banquin, the level of spiritual power is still only at the level of spiritual disciples. If you encounter some high-level spiritual masters with extremely strong defense, you may have some troubles. You can only wait until after being promoted to a second-level spiritual master, your body, speed and attack power will be improved again, so that you can truly sweep all the high-level spiritual masters. After being promoted to a spiritual master, not to mention the level of spiritual power has transformed from the spiritual disciple level to at the spiritual master level. Just the second level of strength in the fist has been changed to the third level of strength, and it is not inferior to any high-level spiritual master. As for the heavenly spiritual master, there is no need to think about it before being promoted to the spiritual master. While Jason was running the spiritual power in his body and punching out, he was thinking slowly in his mind. At the same time, he was spreading his spiritual consciousness out, carefully sensing everything around him, and exercising his spiritual consciousness. The 3 levels of strength Jason mentioned, the first level is the spiritual power of the spiritual master that emerges outside the fist after reaching the spiritual level, the second level is the powerful attack brought by the collapse fist, and the last level is the spiritual power from the fist. The powerful force emitted from the meridians. In Stern Continent, in addition to the difference between the first level and the first level, the levels of spiritual masters are called elementary spiritual masters from the first to the third level, the intermediate spiritual masters from the 4th to the 6th level, and the intermediate spiritual masters from the 7th to the 9th level. As a high-level spiritual master, the gap between the 3rd and 4th levels is much larger than the normal gap between the 1st and 1st levels, and the difficulty of promotion is also much more difficult. In the Koto Town Square, Lin Yan only fought with Carlos for a moment. As a low-level spiritual master, Lin Yan instantly injured Carlos, a senior spiritual master, and the corners of his mouth were bleeding. Well, I finally returned to Talon City. Looking at the west gate of Talon City in front of him and the several city guards standing on duty at the west gate, Jason showed a faint smile on his face. Hurry up, hurry up. Line up for me one by one. Everyone who enters the city pays an entry fee of 5 soul points. At the west gate of Talon City, the city guards shouted while maintaining order. Said, and the people who were preparing to enter the city at the city gate consciously lined up in 2 lines and paid the fee to enter one by one. In Stern Continent, 1 spiritual coin is equal to 100 spiritual points. Talon City is a border city of the kingdom leaning on the spiritual beast mountain range. There are quite a few adventurers and caravans entering Talon City from the surrounding adventurer towns every day. These adventurers and caravans basically come to Talon City with spirit beast spirit cores and some herbs and other things from the spirit beast mountains to sell, or transport them to the inland cities of the kingdom. The entry fee for 5 spirit points is, it sounds like a small amount, but it is a very important part of Talon City's tax revenue. Jason lined up among the crowd naturally and walked slowly towards the city gate. There is a group of 10 city guards, 9 city guards, and one captain at the city gate. There are two groups of people collecting money at the city gate. Each group has two city guards, one is responsible for collecting money, and the other is responsible for observing and checking pedestrians, to see if there were any wanted criminals announced by the kingdom mixed in the crowd. The remaining 6 city guards were all standing near the city gate, chatting. After a while, 4 groups came forward and charged. Rotate. Come on, come over, next one. Pedestrians passed quickly, each of them had the city entrance fee in their hands in advance, and just paid it when the time came. Everyone's entrance fee is 5 spiritual points. With so many people in this row, it is estimated that the entrance fee collected by these city guards in just such a short time will be several spiritual coins. Standing in front of Jason, a big man muttered. He seemed to be an adventurer. For ordinary adventurers, a few spirit coins were a lot of money. Soon, there were only 5 people lined up in front of Jason. The city guard in Jason's group, who was responsible for observing pedestrians, moved his eyes among the crowd. After seeing Jason in the crowd, he was suddenly startled, and then, after wiping his eyes vigorously, he realized that he had seen correctly. "Ah, isn't this Master Jason?" The city guard hurriedly rushed forward and said with a flattering smile, "Haha, Master Jason, why are you queuing up if you want to enter the city? Just come in through the middle passage." "You really?" Jason looked at the city guard in front of him with some doubts. He didn't seem to know any city guards in Talon City. "Haha, Master Jason, you are just an ordinary city guard, but Master Jason, your reputation is as powerful as thunder. That boy is probably a child of some noble family." Jason was around the people entering the city looked enviously as they followed the city guard and walked in through an empty passage in the middle. At the normal city gate, in addition to the toll entrances on both sides, there is also a special passage in the middle, which is usually where some nobles enter the city directly. This is the privilege of some privileged classes, and if some super big shots enter the city, they may even the people at the city gate will be dispersed and people specially sent to greet them. The movement at the city gate also attracted the attention of the other 6 city guards who were standing there chatting. 5 of them immediately looked at Jason respectfully and stood in a row. As a city guard guarding the city gate, they said, the various gossips and special figures in Talon City are the groups who know the most clearly. When they heard that the city guard leading the way called the young man Master Jason, they naturally understood who the young man was. "Which noble family is that boy from?" The leading team leader was a newcomer who had just joined the city guard. He didn't know much about the characters in Talon City, so he curiously asked a subordinate next to him. "Captain, that's Master Jason, not a nobleman. Come and salute with me." Seeing Jason coming, the city guard immediately urged the captain beside him to salute quickly, and at the same time whispered in the captain's ear, "Our previous boss, City Guard Chief Baron Harvey, was transferred from the position of City Guard Chief a month ago and was forced to leave Talon City. I heard that it was because he offended Master Jason." "Yes. Well, my dear." The captain immediately followed several of his men and saluted Jason as he walked through the city gate. Although what the city guard said was subtle, Jason, who had extremely powerful soul power and spiritual consciousness, heard it. Jason couldn't help but shake his head slightly. When did he become so scary in Talon City? "Haha, Master Jason, welcome back to Talon City." At this moment, a hearty laughter suddenly came from the city gate, and a group of people walked towards Jason with smiles on their faces. "Oh my God, isn't that Mr. Messi, the steward of Talon City's Spiritual Masters Union?" After seeing the leader, the city guard captain couldn't help but be frightened, his heart pounding, and he secretly wiping the cold sweat on his forehead. "My dear, it's a good thing I didn't act stupid just now, otherwise I won't know how I died when I died." As a low-level spiritual disciple, he once advanced to the spiritual disciple level in the Spiritual Masters Guild. I have seen Messi. He is the steward of the Talon City Spiritualist Union. He is a powerful third-level intermediate spiritualist. Even he has to come to greet him. What is his identity? Jason raised his head when he heard the familiar laughter and saw Messi walking towards him. Behind him was a group of guards from the Spiritual Masters Guild. The leader was his old acquaintance Mike, and behind Messi, there were also Carlos, the president of the Koto Town Spiritual Masters Union, looked astonished. Seeing Carlos, Jason couldn't help but frown slightly. Messi is in charge, what's the matter with you? Jason said lazily. Although after the last assessment, Jason no longer argued with Messi, he still didn't give him a good look when he saw him. Not to mention that he was accompanied by Carlos, who looked unhappy. Jason himself felt quite depressed. The Spiritual Masters Guild was a very powerful organization anywhere on the Stern continent, but Jason always felt that no matter where he went, the Spiritual Masters Guild would have trouble with him. Last time, this was the case with Kate and Troy, and it is still the case this time back in Koto Town. Haha, Master Jason, it's like this. President Isaac of our Spiritual Masters Guild learned that Master, after you returned to Talon City today, he specially sent you to greet Master at the gate of the city. Anyway, President Isaac and his Master Jason also a good friend? Faced with Jason's stinky face, Messi seemed not to notice it and said with a smile on his face, but in his heart he scolded Carlos beside him. Isaac and I are good friends? Jason was stunned. He seemed to have only met that Isaac once during the assessment. When had we become friends? This friend is a bit too cool. Carlos felt very regretful. At this time, he realized that he seemed to have made a very serious mistake. From the conversation between President Isaac and Messi in the morning, he already felt that something was wrong. In Isaac, after giving the instructions, Messi took him directly to the gate of Talon City, and then kept a straight face without saying a word. As the president of the Koto Town Spiritualist Union, Carlos, although his status is not as good as Messi, the difference is not big. However, one morning, no matter how Carlos asked, Messi remained silent and treated it as if he didn't exist. What made Carlos even more angry was that even the few guards from the Healer Guild who came with him were indifferent to him. This made Carlos so depressed that he almost went crazy. Now after seeing Messi's attitude towards Jason, no matter how stupid Carlos was, he understood where he had made a mistake, and he immediately felt extremely uneasy. After hesitating for a moment, Carlos finally smiled and said with a thick face, "Haha, Master Jason, I'm." Jason ignored Carlos at all, interrupted Carlos's words, and looked at him with a face full of earnestness. Messi said, "Haha, then thank President Isaac for me." As the saying goes, don't hit the smiling person. If Messi is so humble, he doesn't need to keep a straight face. Carlos on the side was livid after his words were interrupted by Jason, but he still forced a smile. Cold sweat covered his forehead. He was extremely embarrassed and couldn't move forward or retreat. Haha, by the way, Master Jason, it's almost noon now. I see you haven't had lunch yet. Why don't I take care of you at the Qingfeng Tower in the center of the city? Qingfeng Tower is a very high-end building in Talon City. A meal in a restaurant costs at least dozens of spirit coins. Ordinary adventurers don't even have the courage to enter. No, I have something to do. If Messi has nothing to do, I'll leave first. Jason shook his head, turned around and left. Haha, Master Jason, let's go slowly. Seeing Jason about to leave, Messi hurriedly came to Jason. I heard that the master encountered some troubles when he returned to Koto Town this time. President Isaac was very worried when he found out. My concern, Carlos. At this point, Messi suddenly gave a stern shout, and Carlos' heart skipped a beat and he immediately stepped forward anxiously. Messi looked at Carlos and said calmly, "From now on, you are no longer the president of the Spiritual Masters Union in Koto Town. You are old. In order to take care of your body, the union heard from the nearby Blackstone town we still lack a mission registrar, so you can go there and retire. Also, Harry's gambling house in Koto Town is banned because it is suspected of violating the laws of the kingdom, and all properties have been confiscated by the union. There is also the Mad Wolf Adventure Group in Koto Town, which bullies others in Kodo town and violates the laws of the kingdom. The law is now also banning and disbanding, and Union staff will go to execute it in the near future. Messi coldly announced the order as if executing a death sentence. After finishing, he said to Jason with a smile on his face, "Jack Masterson, what do you think of this?" Carlos's face turned pale. He never thought that everything he had worked so hard to manage would be wiped out in one day. He would also take part of the annual profits from Harry's gambling house and hand it over to the Talon City Spiritist Guild. Did not expect that everything would end in vain simply because it offended a young man named Jason. Now he felt extremely remorseful, hating the Mad Wolf Adventure Group, and hating himself for not asking about the origins of this man named Jason in the city before going to the Healer Guild to report the situation. "You shouldn't need to report to me for the official duties of the Healer Guild." Jason glanced at Messi lightly, turned and left. "Let's go back with me." Messi watched Jason's back disappear into the street, glanced coldly at Carlos beside him, snorted coldly, and led everyone towards the direction of the Healers Guild. After Jason graduated from the Sith Psychic Academy, he has been staying in Saha's laboratory in the suburbs, and Bispham also moved many things in the laboratory behind his office to Saha. The laboratory is euphemistically called discussing and researching together. When Jason returned to Talon City, the first place he went to was naturally Saha's house in the suburbs. Before approaching Saha's laboratory, he saw Kathleen walking out of the door. "Master Jason, is it you? Are you back?" Seeing Jason, Kathleen couldn't help but be stunned for a moment, and then her face was filled with joy. "Who else could it be if it wasn't me? I haven't seen you for a while, so you don't even recognize me." Jason smiled. "Haha, how could it be possible?" Kathleen said with a hint of blush on her face. For Jason, Kathleen's heart was full of goodwill and gratitude. Without Jason, she would not have been appreciated by President Saha. Although she is still working in the Healer Guild, her daily tasks are for Saha, Bispham, Jason and others help in the laboratory, do odd jobs, buy materials, etc. The sisters who used to be in the Union are now envious of themselves. "By the way, Kathleen, have you cooked today's lunch? If not, make me an extra portion." "Okay, Master Jason, I'm about to go out to buy groceries now." "By the way, Master Jason, President Saha and Master Bispham have missed you to death during your absence." Kathleen chuckled lightly, turned around and walked out. "Miss me to death?" Jason couldn't help but feel a chill running through his body. Two old guys, they must be up to no good. Jason walked into the laboratory and saw two old faces looking at the preparation bottles in front of them with frowns. One was pulling his gray hair, and the other was staring blankly at the compound bottle in front of him, as if the compound bottle was his father-killing enemy. "Oh, dear Jason, I miss you so much when you're not here." Seeing Jason, the two old guys jumped up and looked at Jason with bright eyes. Seeing the green light coming out of their eyes, Jason felt like a little lamb standing in front of two hungry wolves. What was waiting for him would be no bones left. Before Jason could speak, two old guys rushed up. One of them grabbed one of Jason's arms and dragged Jason towards his experimental table. "Come on, Jason, let's take a look at the awakening potion I prepared recently." "What's going on? Why didn't the potion react as it should when adding the sunstone?" Bispham pulled Jason straight to the side. "Yell. Come to see me, Jason, look at me first. I prepared this tranquilizing liquid according to the standard procedures. How come it has no effect at all after the preparation is successful?" Saha was not to be outdone. "Master Jason, look at me first. Look at me first, Master Jason." "Old man, Saha, let go." "Old ghost Bispham, let me go." "You, this old bastard, you old immortal." Two so-called respected masters in Talon City held Jason's hand and cursed at each other while one refused to let go. "Stop pulling, or my hand will break." Jason bared his teeth and cried out in pain, "If I pull you two again, I won't even look at you." "Huh." Jason heard. After saying these words, the two people immediately let go of Jason's hands, glared at each other and snorted coldly. Jason rubbed his sore arms. Forget it, let me give you two an idea. You two each give me something. Whoever gives me something that satisfies me more, I'll take a look first. Isn't it okay? Why are you arguing? Jason lectured the two of them, while Bispham and Saha were like children who had made mistakes, standing aside with their heads lowered. Say. This is a good idea. The two of them dug around in their robes, each clenched their fists and stretched out their hands. Saha took it faster. A yellow polygonal crystal appeared in Saha's hand, exuding a magnificent yellow light in the laboratory, with huge and surging spiritual power surging inside. 4th level spiritual crystal. After seeing what Saha had in his hand, Jason's eyes straightened. Spiritual crystals are similar to spiritual cores, but spiritual cores are spiritual energy extracted from spiritual beasts, while spiritual crystals are extracted from minerals. Both contain huge spiritual power. They are important items in the preparation of spiritual potions and are of great value. The value of a 4th level spiritual crystal in the market is estimated to be no less than 50,000 spiritual coins. Look at me. Bispham snorted disdainfully and stretched out his hand. Damn, what is this? Starry mithril. In Bispham's right hand, a piece of silver-white metal with shining spots of light appeared. The aura emanating from the silver-white metal in Bispham's hand was very familiar to Jason, who was a 9th level elixir master in his previous life. In the Stern Continent and later generations, starry sky mithril is definitely something you can't come across. I beg, even now 3,000 years ago, the starry sky mithril is still quite precious. Damn, old guy, you even took out this thing. Saha's eyes widened, and he couldn't believe his own eyes. Bispham looked at Saha triumphantly. He also got this piece of starry sky secret silver accidentally. For Bispham, who didn't know anything about alchemy and blacksmithing, this starry sky secret silver, although silver is precious, it has little practical value, and it would be worthless if sold. It would be better to give it to Jason as a favor. Hey, Master Jason, can you go and help me take a look now? Bispham was a little arrogant after defeating Saha once. No, this game doesn't count. Wait for me, Master Jason, I want to try again. Saha's eyes turned red. Bispham also jumped up. Old man Saha, how can you be so shameless? I am willing to admit defeat. Jason held back the laughter in his heart and pocketed the starry sky mithril and spiritual crystals in their hands, and then expressed concern. He patted Saha on the shoulder and said seriously, since I have said it before, I will help Bispham watch it first this time. If you want to try it next time. There will be a chance next time. Jason watched. Look first and look later are the same, it only takes a moment. But although these two old guys are good friends, they have also been fighting for their whole lives. They are not willing to fall behind each other in anything, so they got two good things for nothing. Jason was in a good mood, and for the first time he felt that the two's aggressive personalities were really good. Well, it seems that my search efforts are not enough. The two old guys still have so many good things. Alas, the two old guys are also old. They will not bring yellow and white things alive or dead. It's better to find an opportunity to collect it for them too. I'm doing this for their own good. The appearance of mithril in the starry sky made Jason feel deeply ashamed. After spending so long with these two old guys, he didn't expect that these two people had hidden so many treasures. He was derelict in his duty. This was a serious dereliction of duty on his part. Come on, Master Jason, come and watch me prepare the awakening potion. Bispham shouted. Recently, he was studying the preparation method of the 4th level high-grade awakening potion, so he prepared a lot of materials and prepared another one. After receiving the materials, Bispham prepared it step by step in front of Jason. Because he has not fully mastered the preparation of the awakening potion, Bispham prepared it very slowly, and some steps were a bit awkward, but the basic procedure was not wrong. Soon, halfway through the preparation, Bispham put a certain amount of night grass into the reacting potion, and then Bisfam's face became extremely nervous, and he stared fixedly in front of him. Of medicine. Jason, please pay attention carefully. The next step should be to add the sunstone when the reaction of the night grass is complete. However, countless experiments I have done before have failed at this step. Yeah. Jason clicked. He nodded and looked at the reacting potion in front of Bisfam, while Saha on the side stopped talking at this time. The two of them usually made trouble, but at critical moments they were unambiguous. As the reaction in the preparation bottle became more and more violent, Bisfam's expression became more and more nervous. Suddenly, the preparation bottle that was boiling suddenly calmed down, and there were some red spots floating in the medicine. Bisfam picked up the sunstone that had been prepared and was about to throw it into the potion that stopped the reaction. What are you doing? Jason stopped Bisfam. Isn't this night grass reaction complete? The red dots have appeared. We need to add the sunstone as soon as possible, otherwise it will be too late. Bisfam looked at Jason with anxiety on his face. Jason almost choked, looking at Bisfam like a monster. What? Isn't it right? I see, no wonder. Jason looked at Bisfam as if he were an idiot. If you can prepare the awakening potion like this, then it's really a ghost. Give it to me. Wait a moment. Wait a moment? Bisfam on the side was full of doubts, and Saha was also confused. If he was asked to prepare it, he would probably have the same preparation process as Bisfam. It's not that we have to wait for the dark night grass to react completely. Bisfam wanted to continue to say something, but before he could say anything, the originally extremely calm potion boiled again, and Bisfam and Saha suddenly became confused. He was stunned. Why did it react again? The reaction of the potion lasted for a while, and then, the boiling elixir potion calmed down again, and red spots appeared in the potion bottle again. It's better now. Bisfam picked up the sunstone and looked at Jason aside. Jason rolled his eyes at Bisfam. You are so impatient that you still want to be promoted to a senior elixir master? Wait a moment. Wait a while. Bisfam said nothing this time, looking seriously. He was preparing the medicine in the bottle in front of him. After a moment, the medicine that had calmed down actually started to boil again, and then returned to calm. Bisfam continued to stare blankly at the potion in front of him. Old guy, what are you doing? The response of night grass is complete. If you don't add the sunstone, your bottle of potion will be useless. You add it randomly when you shouldn't add it, but you don't add it when you should. TSK, this level. Jason shook his head repeatedly. Oh. Bisfam ignored his blush and hurriedly put the sunstone he had held in his hand for a long time into the potion. Just listen to a popping sound. After the sunstone was put into the potion, a large number of bubbles came out after it came into contact with the potion. A large number of free red spots in the potion continued to gather towards the sunstone. As the sunstone dissolved, the originally calm potion, the spiritual elements in it became violently agitated. This reacted this time. What's going on? Looking at Jason, Bisfam and Saha had doubts on their faces. Puff puff puff. Before Jason could speak, a large number of bubbles emerged from the preparation bottle, and then calmness returned. A large amount of sediment piled up at the bottom of the preparation bottle, losing its original activity. Damn, this is the most critical time in the preparation of the awakening potion. The violent spiritual elements require the spiritual medicine master to constantly neutralize the violent reaction with spiritual consciousness. What are you focusing on? Alas, Jason looked like he was filled with hatred. A steely expression. This Bisfam's old face turned red. By the way, Jason, what happened just now? He still couldn't forget the previous reaction of the medicine one after another. Alas, the basic knowledge is not solid. Jason shook his head. The effectiveness of night grass generally has 3 levels. After the first level of reaction, the red spots produced after the first level of reaction are completed, and if you look carefully, there is a faint yellow color. The second level of reaction after finishing, the red spots produced will have a light orange color. Only when the red spots turn completely deep red in the third stage can you add the sunstone. Go back and review the book on the various properties of common herbs. A few times, okay, Saha, go take a look at your preparation. So that's it. Bispham savored Jason's words carefully and fell into deep thought. A moment later, the voice of Jason lecturing Saha came from the other side of the laboratory. Damn, old guy, what did you prepare? Who taught you this so-called standard procedure? The calming liquid is mainly used by the spiritual master to restrain the violent spiritual elements contained in the spiritual heart when absorbing the spiritual heart, and improve the human body's resistance to the spiritual elements. It mainly has two effects, suppressing the violent spiritual elements. To improve the human body's resistance to spiritual elements, take a look at your preparation steps. Is what you prepared a tranquilizing liquid or a murderous liquid? God bless you, luckily you didn't prepare it. Oh my God. Why did I meet such an idiot like you, Saha? Go back and review the book on the basic principles of common elixirs at all levels for me. Afterwards, Saha also fell into deep thought. Middle. President Saha, Master Bispham, Master Jason, dinner is ready. After a while, Kathleen's voice came from outside the laboratory. No need to shout. Jason walked out and said, will the two of them come out soon? Well, Master Jason, lunch is ready. After hearing what Jason said, Kai Celine stopped shouting. For masters like Bispham and Saha who are addicted to the preparation of magical potions, missing meals is really a normal thing. Jason came to the dining room. Feeling a little hungry, he directly picked up the bowl and chopsticks and started eating. Yes, Kathleen, the food you cooked today is good. Jason devoured the food in front of him. The long journey and the cursing just now, no, it was the guidance just now, consumed it. He has a lot of physical strength. After a while, Jason patted his swollen belly after eating and drinking, and the whole table was in a mess. Ah, President Saha, Master Bispham, you are coming out, hurry up and eat. Kathleen's voice and the sound of two footsteps came from outside the dining room. Two red-eyed but energetic old men walked in from outside the dining room. When they saw the messy dining table, they were all stunned. There was basically nothing left on the entire table except for some soup. Gulialu. The stomachs of Bispham and Saha screamed in rebellion, but Jason burped heavily. He was full. I'm sorry, today's food is so delicious. Looking at Bispham and Saha who were about to riot, Jason had a sneer on his face and a trace of cold sweat on his forehead. Facing the two senior, he had no chance of winning against the Heavenly Spirit Master's critical attack. It's okay, by the way, I have something serious to do. Bispham and Saha both laughed, but their laughter was evil. The city master, 2 days ago, someone from my house sent an invitation, inviting us to a banquet. What does that have to do with me? You also know that we, too, are not interested in this, alas, so I can only trouble you. Damn, what about you too? Well, we are even more pitiful. Don't you call people who can't even prepare awakening potions and tranquilizing liquids idiots? In order not to be idiots, the two of us decided to spend the next 2 days in the laboratory. You have been studying hard here. You have been in Talon City for so long and you haven't been to the City Lord's palace yet. It just gives you a chance to see it. Bispham and Saha said while rubbing their fists. He made a creaking sound. What, you don't want to? Yes, when is the banquet? Jason's forehead was sweating, and he looked at Bispham and Saha with fear, fearing that neither of them would be happy. We'll take action suddenly. Tomorrow night. Bispham and Saha smiled with satisfaction. I don't know what day it is today, but the City Lord's mansion is decorated with lanterns and brightly lit. Jason did not take the carriage. He walked out of the laboratory in the suburbs early and walked slowly around Talon City before arriving at the City Lord's mansion in the center of the city. Jason, why are you here? There was an endless stream of people outside the City Lord's mansion. A familiar voice suddenly came from the side. A carriage stopped next to Jason, and two figures walked down from it. Teacher Klein, Teacher Feng Yi. Seeing the two people walking out of the carriage, a smile appeared on Jason's face. In the entire Sith Spiritual Power Academy, they were the only two teachers with whom he had a good relationship. That's all. Haha, you have received the invitation too. Klein also laughed. She knew that Jason had treated Linda's body, so she naturally attributed Jason's appearance to the invitation from the City Lord's mansion, but she did not come to think of it, Jason was actually coerced by two unscrupulous people. Seeing Klein and Feng Yi, a servant quickly came up to them. They respectfully took the invitation from Klein and Feng Yi, and then welcomed the three people into the house. Jason followed the two of them, were naturally treated as followers of the two by the servants of the City Lord's palace, which made Jason lose a few brain cells as he didn't know whether to get Bisfam's invitation or Saha's invitation. The mentor has been there recently, President Saha? Outside the banquet hall was a garden filled with all kinds of exotic flowers and plants. The banquet had not started yet, and many guests were staying in the garden, talking to each other. Jason and the three of them found a secluded spot and sat down. Since Jason went to Saha's laboratory, Bisfam also moved his laboratory there. Although Bisfam did not care much about the affairs of the college in the past, he would still go to the college occasionally. I haven't even been there recently. This directly led to Klein trying to find his own mentor but not being able to find one, and the college's top management had to go to Saha's laboratory in the suburbs every time they notified Bisfam of something. That hometown yes, Dean Bisfam and President Saha have been concentrating on research and preparation of the latest 4th-level high-grade medicine in the laboratory recently. It is estimated that it will not be available for a while. In front of Klein and Feng Yi, Jason had to protect the two old guys' face. Jason, you shouldn't be just a low-level spiritual disciple now, right? Feng Yi, who was just smiling and silent, suddenly said after looking at Jason for a long time. Haha, yes, Teacher Feng Yi, he was promoted to advanced level a few days ago. Jason had nothing to hide from Feng Yi and Klein. What? Hi, Senior? Feng Yi looked shocked. Yes, Senior Spirit Disciple, is there anything wrong? Jason looked confused. Feng Yi couldn't help but gasped. As Jason's teacher of spiritual mechanics at the Sith Spiritual Power Academy, he was the one who knew Jason's level best. 18-year-old high-level spiritual disciples are rare in the Kingdom of Orlando, but they are not universally cherished. He was already a high-level spiritual disciple when he was 18, while Klein, who is only 24, is a low-level spiritual master now. He might even be a spiritual warrior at the age of 18. What really shocked Feng Yi was that Jason advanced so quickly. You know, he was only at the 5th level of spiritual power a year ago. Although he hadn't advanced in 2 years, it still shocked Feng Yi. If Feng Yi knew that Jason, who was now a senior spiritual disciple, had killed a senior spiritual master of the same level as him not long ago, Feng Yi would probably stare out of his eyes. Ah, beautiful Miss Klein, I didn't expect you to be here. At this time, someone also noticed the situation on Jason's side, and a chubby businessman who was as long as a bucket walked up and said hello. As a low-level alchemist and a direct disciple of Master Bisfam, Klein has a good reputation in Talon City. Especially since she is still single at the age of 24, she has attracted a large number of noble sons. Feng Yi is already a senior spiritual master at the age of 30, and he is not unknown in Talon City. Soon, a large number of guests crowded around Jason, who was originally empty, pushing Jason out. Jason shook his head, but no one paid attention to his little role. He just started to watch in the garden. When he walked to a remote corner of the garden, a small golden flower, growing among many tulips, suddenly attracted his attention. Catching Jason's gaze. Golden mandala, I didn't expect that there are such precious flowers in the garden of Lord Sona City's house. It's quite surprising. A charming and enchanting voice suddenly sounded behind Jason, and a faint feeling, the scent of purple jasmine, entered Jason's nose with the wind. Jason turned his head and looked around. A mature and charming woman came to Jason's side. Xiaoxi's pretty face with a smile was decorated with 2 crescent moon eyebrows. The water in her bright eyes was flowing, and she seemed to be releasing seductive glances all the time. If it weren't for Master Jason, the little girl wouldn't be able to tell at a glance from the flowers that this inconspicuous little flower is the cherished golden mandala. The woman smiled brightly at Jason, her red lips full of doubts, making the surrounding delicate flowers eclipse in an instant. Jason looked away. The purple jasmine fragrance coming from the charming woman in front of him made Jason feel a sense of tranquility in his heart. This smell came from Ningxian perfume. Ningxian perfume is said to be a perfume, but it is actually a first-order mid-grade spirit. The potion, when applied on the body, can make people feel clear and calm. When practicing, it will be more spiritual and the effect will be better. Although this golden mandala looks very similar to a tulip, if you look carefully, you can still spot it at a glance. Jason said lightly. The woman next to him obviously knew him and went out to strike up a conversation. Now Jason had nothing to do anyway, so he didn't mind chatting with her. Seeing his proud appearance did not cause much surprise to Jason. The woman pouted her rosy mouth, and then curiously asked, "Oh? I'm Yanji. I like these flowers and plants very much. I wonder how Master Jason distinguishes tulips from golden mandala?" It's very simple. There is a clear difference between the leaves of tulips and golden mandala. The leaf tips of tulips are slightly oval, while the golden mandala, the leaf tips of datura, are relatively pointed, and there is no fuzz on the leaves of tulips, while the leaves of golden datura have fine fuzz. Even the flowers that look the same have many differences. Golden datura, the veins on the flowers are darker, while the veins on tulips are lighter. There are also the thickness of the leaves and flowers, the color inside the stems, the smell between the two, the elements contained in the body, etc. Tulips are just for viewing. Sexual flowers, while the golden mandala is a material for the preparation of elixirs, etc., in many places, the two are completely different. Seeing Yanji's sincere tone in asking herself, rather than asking random questions just to find a topic, Jason pointed out the previous differences between the two and told Yanji one by one. Yanji had a look of surprise on her face. Every time Jason said something, the look of surprise on Yanji's face became deeper. Yanji really didn't expect that there were so many differences between tulips and golden mandala, which looked almost the same to ordinary people. Even flower experts had to carefully identify them. This made her just discovered in front of Jason. Yanji, who was a little proud of the golden mandala, couldn't help but blush on her face. "Miss Yanji, please take your time and wander around. I'll go look elsewhere." Jason smiled at Yanji and walked to the other side of the garden. "Lord Sonus is here." Before Jason could take 2 steps, there was a sudden noise outside the garden. Jason looked up and saw a majestic middle-aged man with a mustache and a gold-trimmed ceremonial robe walking into the garden. Standing next to him was a man in a red dress and black braids. The girl was none other than Linda, whom Jason had treated. A middle-aged man who looked like a guard stood behind the two of them. His face was calm and seemed very ordinary. However, Jason could feel an extremely powerful aura from the middle-aged man. He was probably the 3rd man from Talon City. A strong man, the guard commander of Jones, a 5th-level low-level sect spiritual master. As the lord of a city, there are naturally many people who want to get in touch with Sonus. When he walked into the garden, a group of guests immediately greeted him like stars over the moon, but Sonus he was not panicked at all, with a well-placed smile on his face. While greeting everyone, he walked towards the banquet hall. No one was left out in the cold along the way. Sonus came to Jason, his eyes fell on Yanji, with a smile on his face. "Yanji, remember to have fun tonight." "Okay, thank you Uncle Sonus for your hospitality." Yanji smiled, and there was a sound of swallowing saliva coming from around her. Linda, who was following Sonus, saw Jason on the side and her face changed slightly. Thinking of the treatment Jason gave her that day, she couldn't help but blush. Then Lord Sonus cast his eyes on Jason aside. Seeing the blue-gray robe on Jason, he couldn't help but frown slightly. It wasn't that Sonus had any opinion on Jason, it was just the robe on Jason. It's too old. After all, this is a dinner party at the Sonus City Lord's mansion. When you come to the City Lord's mansion for a banquet, you don't necessarily have to dress gorgeously, but you must at least dress up decently. The young man in front of you seems to have just dressed up before setting off. The clothes are the same, and the boy himself doesn't know him yet. But after all, Sonus was a person who had been in the high position of the city lord for a long time. Although he felt a little unhappy in his heart, he still put on a gentle smile. Who is this one? Lord Sonus, this is Jason. Jason? Sonus was suddenly stunned. Regarding the name Jason, Sonus was very familiar with it, even though it was Jason who cured his daughter Linda. Sick, but Sonus has not seen Jason in person, and I heard that Jason has a very good relationship with Master Saha and Master Bispham, but he did not expect that he was such a young boy. However, Lord Sonus was calm after all. Despite the turmoil in his heart, his face remained calm. He smiled again and extended his hand enthusiastically. Welcome, Master Jason has superb medical skills. As a father, I haven't spoken to you personally. Thank you. City Lord, you're welcome. Jason said humbly. Yenji on the side glanced at Jason in confusion. It was obvious that she was not clear about the matter between Lord Sonus and Jason. Under the warm greeting of Lord Sonus, a group of people walked into the banquet hall. For this dinner, the city lord's mansion obviously put a lot of effort into it. Placed in the middle of the entire banquet hall was an elongated dining table filled with various drinks and snacks. Under the reflection of countless crystal chandeliers, just like daytime, the bright red carpet and the reliefs engraved around it gave everyone a luxurious yet classic atmosphere. A large number of handsome waiters and beautiful maids shuttled between the banquets. In addition to Klein and teacher Fengyi, the only person Jason knew in the entire hall was Yenji, whom he had just met. Feeling a little bored, he took a glass of red wine from the maid and a plate of snacks, and sat down in the hall. In a corner, I was eating quietly while observing the crowd in the hall. Those who can attend this banquet are basically celebrities from Talon City. They are either noble officials with positions in Talon City, or businessmen and celebrities with great wealth and fame. At this moment, everyone is dressed well and radiantly, with faces full of joy. Smiling and talking to each other, it was quite lively. Master Jason, why are you sitting here alone? Messi from the Spiritual Masters Guild also attended the banquet, but President Isaac did not come. After seeing Jason in the corner, Messi immediately brought red wine, sitting next to Jason with a smile on his face. It's boring enough. Haha, Master Jason, don't underestimate such a banquet. Maybe a few people's accidental conversation can change the fate of many people in Talon City in the future. Jason smiled, non-committal. I went over to Master Jason. Have fun. Carlos has been sent to Blackstone Town by President Isaac this morning. The law enforcement team of the Spirit Master Guild has also set off to Koto Town this morning. Messi said after drinking the remaining red wine in the glass, knowing that Jason was sitting here because he didn't want to be disturbed, he immediately got up and walked into the crowd. Jason shook his head slightly. He was not too disturbed by the Healer Guild's flattering behavior. When he turned his eyes, he saw Linda walking towards him. Before sending out the invitation to the City Lord's mansion, Linda was a little hesitant about whether to invite Jason. She was embarrassed to see Jason, so she didn't invite him in the end. Now Jason showed up at the dinner party for some reason, Linda felt relieved. Jason, thank you. Linda picked up the wine glass in her hand and gave Jason a toast. Linda was quite dissatisfied with this young man who had taught her a lesson in the Academy's elite hall, but since the last time Jason, after being cured of an illness that many doctors invited by the city lord's mansion had failed to treat, Linda was still a little dissatisfied when she faced Jason, but she also had a hint of admiration and a strange feeling. Especially when Linda thought about that treatment and Jason's powerful hands constantly moving around her lower abdomen, Linda's face felt like it was on fire. Linda sat next to Jason for a while, chatted for a few words, and then left. Jason sat in the corner alone, which was quite comfortable. Klein and Feng Yi came together. The two people who were teachers at the Sith Spiritual Power Academy had been together at the dinner. As a single beauty, Klein was naturally very attractive at the dinner. There were a lot of young talents. Klein kept coming up to chat with him, but he would just deal with them briefly, and then talk to Feng Yi again. A young man had been paying attention to Klein at the beginning of the dinner. Throughout the dinner, Klein's every move fell into his eyes. "Mr. Buen, do you know that spiritual master?" The young man looks to be in his 20s, with a handsome and fair face. His long golden hair looks extremely noble under the light of the crystal lamp. The dress he is wearing is quite well tailored. A gorgeous long sword hangs on the waist, giving people a luxurious atmosphere. Are you talking about Feng Yi? He is a teacher of spiritual mechanics at the Sith Spiritual Power Academy. He is already a senior spiritual master at a young age, although he did not know the true identity of this young man. During the conversation, Buen said, he always maintained a respectful attitude, because this young man was introduced by the Lord of Sona City, saying that he was from the royal capital of Orlando. Buen, who is the director of the finance department in Talon City, boasts that he has met many nobles, but from the tone and content of the young man's conversation with the Lord of Sona City, Buen can see that the power of this young family seems to be a little higher than the Lord of Sona City. Unfortunately, too little information was revealed in the conversation between the city lord and the young man was very secretive about his origins. So far, Buen only knew that the young man's name was Roos, and he came from the city of Orlando. Lton. Really, Roos nodded and didn't ask any more questions. He just said sorry and walked up to Klein with a glass of red wine. "Klein, I'm glad to see you here." Roos looked polite. "Roos, why is it you?" Seeing Roos, Klein immediately showed a trace of surprise and confusion on his face. Seeing Klein's surprised look, Roos immediately laughed. "The family has a batch of things that I need to transport from Talon City. I didn't expect to meet you in Talon City. It really surprised me. You tell me if we are destined for each other." Haha. Klein laughed twice and didn't say much. "Sir, I'm talking to Miss Klein, could you please step out of the way?" Roos suddenly turned his gaze to Feng Yi, beside him. Eavesdropping on other people's conversations is not a good behavior. Feng Yi was stunned by Roos' words. He frowned slightly, then glanced at Roos and said to Klein, "Klein, I'll go over there first. Let's take a walk." "Roos, Feng Yi is my friend." Klein had a hint of displeasure on his face. "Klein, how can you walk with a warrior? That would be detrimental to your identity." Roos always had a faint smile on his face. "I didn't expect you to come here from the royal capital. Now, you have become a teacher in some college. What is so good about Talon City? I think you should come back to the capital with me in 2 days. I am free to go wherever I want. I am tired and need to take a rest. Roos, you'd better do it yourself." Klein obviously didn't want to say anything more to this Roos and walked directly to the side. Looking at Klein's back, Roos had a slight smile on his face, and then walked towards Feng Yi, who was holding the wine glass. "Stay away from Klein from now on. Her identity is beyond the reach of a small spiritual master like you. Don't even think about eating swan meat, otherwise you won't even know how you will die in the future." Feng Yi glanced at Roos inexplicably. This handsome young man was looking at him with an undisguised sense of superiority. Feng Yi had always been indifferent to such people and didn't care. Glancing at him, he said calmly, "Teacher Klein is my friend, and I don't need you to tell me what to do with him." Roos smiled. He was just a little spiritual master, and he put down his body to talk to him. He spoke, but he didn't expect the other party to react like this. Even in the capital, not many spiritual masters dared to speak to him like this. However, after all, Roos had seen the world, so he decided to give the country bumpkin opposite him another chance. Maybe the other party didn't understand what he said just now, so he decided to be more direct this time. Young man, don't blame me for not warning you. If I see you and Klein together again, I will make you regret coming into this world. Roos looked at Feng Yi with a smile, like looking at an ant. A third-level senior spiritual master may be out of reach for ordinary people, but to Roos, it is insignificant. Feng Yi glanced at Roos coldly and didn't say anything. He just walked towards Klein with the wine glass in his hand. A small place is a small place. It seems that no one listened to what Roos, said. A sneer appeared on Roos' face. Roos's family is very powerful in King Orlando. Even in the royal capital, ordinary spiritual masters will be respectful when they see him. But now Feng Yi's indifferent attitude toward him one after another has aroused the feeling in his heart. Anger. Let me teach you what respect means. Looking at Feng Yi's back, the sneer on Roos's face suddenly turned ferocious. With a cry, his body suddenly burst out. As soon as Feng Yi walked 7 or 8 steps away, he suddenly noticed a fluctuation in the surrounding spiritual elements, and a strong wind suddenly blew up behind him. Feng Yi was suddenly startled, waiting for him to feel that something was wrong and wanted to react. It was already too late, so he had no choice but to forcefully release the spiritual power of the senior spiritual master in his body to the surface of his body in an instant. Boom! A fiery red light flashed in the air, and Roos's right fist had hit Feng Yi's back heavily. Feng Yi's whole body was shaken heavily by this huge force. He flew out, bumped into several guests in front of him, crushed several tables and chairs to pieces, and spurted a mouthful of blood from his mouth. Amidst the huge noise, at this moment, everyone in the banquet hall was stunned. This is the dinner party for Lord Sonus of Talon City. How dare someone dare to take action? This teacher Feng Yi. Jason, who was attracted by the loud noise in the banquet hall, turned his head and only had time to see Feng Yi's fallen figure. With a roar from his mouth, the whole person rushed forward in the next moment. Roos, what are you doing? Klein, who was not far away, also hurried over, with a hint of anger on his face, and then raised Feng Yi, who fell on the ground with concern. How are you, Feng Yi? Feng Yi waved his hand, coughed up a mouthful of blood again, and said to himself, fortunately, I just timely raised a layer of spiritual protection on the surface of my body, otherwise, Feng Yi, don't move. Klein's eyes suddenly lit up, and a huge wave of spiritual power rose from her body. In the eyes of all the guests, 3 green halos emerged from Klein's head, and finally suspended behind Klein's head. That's a spiritual ring, 3 spiritual rings. Isn't this teacher Klein a spiritual medicine master? Why are you so accomplished as a spiritual master? 3 spiritual rings, this is not something ordinary people can have. It seems that teacher Klein's identity is not simple. I am afraid that he is not just a teacher of the Sith Spiritual Power Academy. There was a lot of discussion in the crowd. Ignoring the comments around him, Klein kept muttering something slightly after the spirit ring appeared. Suddenly, Klein's eyes suddenly erupted with a brilliant light, and then the outermost one of the 3 green halos floating behind her head suddenly lit up, and a huge aqua phantom appeared behind Klein. It was when Klein was promoted to the 3rd-level spiritual master. The absorbed 3rd-level water spirit beast Qingming water demon. The dew is pouring down. A chant murmured from teacher Klein's mouth. The shadow of the Qingming water demon hovering behind teacher Klein suddenly glowed with green light. At the next moment, a dazzling green light erupted from teacher Klein's hands. It fell on Feng Yi everywhere. Feng Yi's originally pale face suddenly turned rosy, and his brows, which were frowning in pain, relaxed slightly at this moment. What's going on? A majestic voice suddenly sounded from the crowd, and then the crowd immediately separated. Lord Sonus walked in with a serious face, looking at Rue, who was standing there with an indifferent expression. Sri Lanka. It's just a lesson to a little spiritual master. Uncle Sonus, it's really hard for someone like you to sneak in at your banquet. Rue sighed and shook his head, flicking his sleeves with the same expression as before. Just swept away an ant. Where did this young man come from? His tone is so arrogant. It's just that I haven't seen him in Talon City before. I just heard the introduction from Lord Sonus. He seems to be from the royal capital of Colton. From the royal capital of Colton. A nobleman from the capital? This, listening to the noisy voices in the crowd, Jason checked Feng Ye's body, then stood up with a gloomy face, and walked towards Roos not far away. As a spiritual master, we also know how serious the injury that teacher Feng Yi suffered previously was. This guy really did it. Looking at Jason, who was staring at him and slowly approaching, Roos said with a mocking look, "Little guy, what are you doing here? Do you want to pung?" Was all Roos said. Halfway through, with horrified eyes, he saw a fist growing rapidly in front of his eyes and hitting his face heavily. With a muffled sound, Roos's whole body fell heavily and flew out. With the corner of his mouth there was a trace of blood hanging on it, and his face was a little dazed. He never imagined that the young man in front of him, who didn't look that big, would punch him without saying a word, and he couldn't allow himself to react at all. What Roos didn't expect was that as a low-level spiritual master, he would be injured by that boy's seemingly light punch. "If you dare to hurt my teacher, you will be beaten." After Jason finished speaking, he kicked him again. In shock, Roos hurriedly used his right hand to block it. With a pop, Roos felt his right hand go numb, and a subtle skeletal groan sounded, followed by a burst of severe pain that entered his mind. Roos's face instantly became distorted. "Master Jason. Jason." City Lord Sonus and Teacher Klein called out at the same time, stopping Jason, who was about to move forward. "What? Lord Sonus? Do you want such a lawless man to continue to be rampant?" Lord Sonus frowned. "Master Jason, let me see this Othello. Where did this guy die?" Roos, who stood up, let out an angry roar and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. His face became extremely ferocious and twisted, like an angry mad dog. He really didn't expect that, in Talon City, in such a small place, someone dared to hurt himself. "Master." A figure quickly swept in from outside the banquet hall and stood in front of Roos. This was a middle-aged man with a long sword hanging from his waist and wearing a set of exquisite silver armor, full of arrogance. There is an inch-long scar on his face, which adds a bit of coldness and toughness. "Master." Sensing the man's aura, Jason's face couldn't help showing a trace of solemnity, while Feng Ye's face changed slightly. As spiritual masters, they could feel it from the middle-aged man. There was an unspeakable pressure. "Othello, get rid of them both." With a sinister smile on his face, Roos pointed at Jason and Feng Yi in front of him. "Yes, master." The middle-aged man responded softly, turned around, glanced at Jason and Feng Yi, and walked forward slowly. An unconcealable pressure arose out of thin air in the entire banquet hall. "That's enough, Roos." Klein had a hint of anger on his face. Lord Sonus frowned and his face looked a little gloomy. "Roos, stop fooling around, let's forget about this matter." "That's enough?" "Haha." Roos couldn't help laughing wildly, and then he said to Sonus, "Uncle Sonus, I respectfully call you uncle. I have never been beaten like this by anyone since I was a child, but you let me just let it go." "Haha, it's really ridiculous, Othello, here I'll do it." Roos's heart was filled with anger at this moment. Although his father asked him to listen to Uncle Sonus before leaving in Talon City, at this moment, Roos's heart was blinded by anger and he couldn't listen at all. "Do not enter any words. If you dare to hit me, Roos, I will make you regret coming into this world." Roos's eyes were red and he roared in his heart. "Who? Othello's figure instantly turned into an afterimage and punched Jason. The entire banquet hall was shaken by Othello's punch, and a violent whine sounded in the air. An indescribable pressure enveloped Jason's whole body in an instant. Under the suppression of Othello's spiritual power, Jason could only feel the skin all over his body beating in an instant, with chills all over his body standing on end, and countless goosebumps on Jason's body. Rapid eruption on the skin. There was no time to react. A strange light flashed in Jason's eyes, and the powerful soul power instantly turned into a cone and shot towards Othello in front of him. A sharp, bone-piercing pain instantly occurred in Jason's mind, and Othello's lightning-like figure in front of him only paused slightly in midair, and then attacked Jason ferociously without any hindrance. At this moment, Jason felt the breath of death. Boom! A huge sound sounded in the banquet hall. A figure stopped in front of Jason just when Othello's fist was about to hit Jason, blocking Jason's attack. Strong energy filled the banquet hall. It spread, and the bodies of the nearby guests swayed involuntarily under the influence of this force. Jones, it's Lord Jones. After seeing the person who blocked Othello's powerful blow, there was a burst of exclamation in the crowd. It was the strongest man in Talon City who had been standing behind the Lord of Sonus, Jones, a 5th-level low-level spiritual master. In Talon City, people have strong confidence in this middle-aged man who is known as the strongest man in Talon City. No, it seems that Othello is not weaker than Jones. Jason was different from ordinary people. He could see something from the previous exchange between the two and Jones' solemn face. Jones, are we going to have a fight? It's good that you are strong, but at most you are on par with me. If you want to protect others in front of me, I'm afraid you don't have the ability. Othello looked at Jones in front of him, his face a sneer appeared on his face. Othello is right. At the same time, Jones, a low-level spiritual master, is as strong as him. In a fair fight, it is not certain who will lose or win. If you have to distract yourself from protecting others, let alone not being able to protect them, I am afraid it is Jones himself. Be careful and Othello will kill you. Hey, isn't this Roos? How come you were beaten into such a pig-headed shape? Haha, you are so majestic, but this is Talon City, not the royal capital, and this is not a place for you to show off your majesty. Master Jason, you don't worry, as long as I'm here, no one can touch you. A soft voice suddenly sounded in everyone's ears, and then a mature and charming woman came to Jason's side. It was Yen-Ji, whom Jason had met before. Damn, this Jason's luck is so good. Who is this girl? She's the best. There was a sound of swallowing from the crowd. Jason looked at Yen-Ji with some depression. He didn't seem to be familiar with her, right? Damn it, who are you, stinky woman? Othello, what are you doing so dawdling? Why don't you do it? Roos roared. Who? Othello's figure suddenly skyrocketed, and afterimages flashed in the hall. The speed was so fast that he passed Jones's blockage in an instant. His right hand, carrying a strong wind, suddenly felt like a mountain falling from the sky. Like, covering Jason and Yen-Ji in front of him. Othello, you are seeking death. A loud roar suddenly rang in everyone's ears. Everyone present only saw a flash of light. Othello's body, which was originally weighed down like a mountain, flew toward him like a kite with its string broken. It was thrown back and flew out, spurting out a cloud of blood in midair. A strong man like an iron tower came to Yen-Ji's side, his bell-like eyes staring at Othello, who fell to the ground and stood up quickly. Uncle Barton, thank you. Yen-Ji smiled brightly, stunning the entire audience. Don't worry, miss. If that boy Othello dares to come up again, I'll slap him to death. Othello's mouth was filled with blood, and he looked at the iron tower-like man in front of him with a look of horror on his face. With a hint of fear. What is the level of a strong man who can injure a low-level sect spiritual master like himself with just one slap? An intermediate sect spiritual master? No, that big man is probably at least a high-level sect spiritual master. Pa, a solid slap. A slap fell on Roos's face. In anger, Sonus' expression had long lost its previous grace. So Uncle Sonus, this slap made Roos retreat repeatedly. He covered the left side of his face with his hand, and a trace of blood spilled out of the corner of his mouth again. His originally crazy red eyes became a little clearer. Roos, you leave Talon City and go home tomorrow. I will talk to your father about what happened today. Roos was a little confused. Only then did he remember that his father was let yourself listen carefully to Uncle Sonus' words in Talon City. Master Jason, Yenji, are you okay? Sonus came to Jason and Yenji. At this time, he was still a little frightened. Othello's blow that staggered Jones just now made Sonus, who was so calm, break out in a cold sweat. If something happened to Jason here, Sonus had no doubt that Bispham was furious. He will demolish his city lord's mansion. And if something happens to Yenji here, Sonus can no longer imagine what the consequences will be. No matter how big the background behind Roos is, he can't save Roos. Then he really can't become a sinner. Sonus' eyes flickered over the faces of Yenji, Jason, and Klein. The Lord of Sonus, who knew the background of the three people, secretly twitched in his heart. How could he be involved in such a thing? Not easy to mess with. If it weren't for that boy Roos, how could a good dinner turn into this? Thinking of this, Lord Sonus once again looked angrily at Roos, who was standing there with his face swollen due to injuries. The anger that had subsided emerged again. I'm fine, Lord Sonus. Teacher Feng Yi is injured, so I'll take him back to rest first. Thank you, Lord Sonus, for your hospitality today. Jason helped Feng Yi on the side and joined Klein. Walked out of the banquet hall. Uncle Sonus, I'm going back first. Yenji smiled faintly and walked out of the banquet hall with Barton. Master Jason, do you want me to send someone to escort you? As soon as Jason and others walked out of the city lord's mansion, Yenji chased them out. You're welcome, Miss Yenji. Jason took a deep look at Yenji in front of him. This little girl looked harmless, but her identity made people think deeply. Mr. Barton, thank you earlier. You're welcome, Master Jason. Haha, the Master's strength is indeed extraordinary. I think you are a first-level spiritual disciple. That mental attack just now was able to defeat Othello, a low-level sect spirit. We all almost suffered a loss, it's not easy. Even Jones, who blocked Othello's attack for Jason, didn't feel Jason's previous soul attack, but Barton, who was standing outside the crowd, could see it clearly, Othello's abrupt pause mid-attack. Psychic attack? Jason was stunned for a moment. Jason, who had obtained the spiritual heart of the nine-headed fearful phantom demon, had a soul attack, which was essentially different from the spiritual attack based on spiritual consciousness. However, Jason just smiled and said, it was the acquiescence, and no further explanation was given. After exchanging pleasantries with Yenji and Barton, and once again rejecting their kindness, Jason sent Klein and teacher Feng Yi back to the Sith Spiritual Power Academy, and then returned to Saha's laboratory. Go. Jason, who was full of anger, decided to go back and teach Bispham and Saha a lesson. What kind of dinner was he invited to attend? Mental loss. I have to ask them both for mental damages when I go back. You two are so old, because you asked me to attend the banquet, I almost didn't come back. As soon as he returned to Saha's laboratory, Jason grabbed Bispham, who was busy in the laboratory. And Saha were dragged out. Hey, Master Jason, wait a minute, my tranquilizing liquid is at the critical moment. My awakening potion is also the last step. It is about to be prepared successfully. Bispham and Saha were pulled by Jason, but they did not dare to resist, so they had to beg again and again, but Jason ignored them. Pfft! Bang! Two soft sounds came from the laboratory, and the faces of Bispham and Saha suddenly turned the color of bitter melon. Without the control of their spiritual consciousness, the spirit being prepared was the potion undoubtedly failed. Tell me, what should we do? The matter is very serious, and the master is very angry. Jason sat down in front of Bispham and Saha. After briefly talking about what happened at the dinner, he looked at him coldly. With 2 people. Damn, that bastard Roos dared to attack even Master Jason. He simply doesn't want to live anymore. Seeing Jason's expression, Bispham didn't care about feeling sorry for the previous experiment, and immediately said righteously. Road. Yes, the little guy from the Lorraine family is simply lawless. And that Othello, a little guard, doesn't even look at who is standing in front of him. The next time I see him in the capital, I have to incite him. 18 mouths are enough. Saha endured his bleeding heart and was not far behind. Is this the end? I risked my life to go to this dinner party for you today. Jason looked cold and expressionless, but he was laughing secretly in his heart. There are so many good things about these 2 old guys. If you don't plunder and plunder things, how can you be worthy of attending the dinner for them? By the way, Master Jason, last time I accidentally saw a strange grass, please help me identify it. What is it? How could Bispham not understand what Jason meant? He painfully took out a plant from his body. This plant is extremely strange. It has only 2 leaves, one is green, like a diamond-shaped ice crystal, and the other is red, like a leaping flame. This grass is a bit weird. Let me take it back and study it carefully. Jason took the grass from Bispham's hand with a straight face, but he was extremely satisfied in his heart, being sheen flame grass, even if this grass is not as good as Svam passed the test. Bispham watched with reluctance as Jason put the ice heart flame grass into his bag, and it hurt in his heart. Master Jason, I accidentally picked up a stone last time. I can't tell what kind of ore it is. Please help me take a look. Saha also took out a black crystal stone with a smooth surface. Strange, under the light it gives people a deep and mysterious feeling. What Saha brought out was actually obsidian, not bad. Jason took the black crystal that Saha handed over, looked at it carefully, and then pretended to say, "This ore is a bit strange, I'll help you too. You study it. Then I'll trouble Master Jason." Bispham and Saha looked sad, filled with hatred. If they had known better, they would have gone to the dinner party and killed that little bastard Roos. Ahem, Master Jason, are you okay? Bispham and Saha asked cautiously. Well, it's okay. I've thought about it. What happened today is all that Roos' fault and has nothing to do with you two. You can continue to do the experiment you just did. Hey. Bispham and Saha agreed, then looked at each other. The experiment just now? The experiment just now was completely scrapped when you dragged us out of the laboratory door just now. What the hell? Experiment. However, although Bispham and Saha were depressed, they were still full of gratitude to Jason. After Jason's guidance in the past 2 days, Bispham and Saha were preparing awakening potions and safety measures respectively. The spirit liquid has been continuously improved in the process, and now there is a faint feeling that the preparation is successful. Such changes have made Bispham and Saha full of admiration for Jason, and they feel extremely proud of Jason. Of mystery. After getting to know Jason, Bispham and Saha had a feeling in their hearts. Although Jason's elixir level was not high, when it came to the preparation of elixirs, this 18-year-old boy seemed to be incompetent. Unknown. There is no preparation of a magical potion that he does not know, and there is no characteristic of a material that he does not understand. This is how Bispham and Saha feel about Jason. By the way, who is that Yenji? Just as the two were about to enter the laboratory, Jason spoke up again. Yenji? What Yenji? We don't know each other. Forget it. Looking at Bispham and Saha, Jason always felt that these 2 guys had weird expressions when they answered. Back in his room, Jason sat down cross-legged and began his evening practice. 357, 358, 359 in the early morning, in the backyard of the manor on the outskirts of Saha, a shirtless Jason was doing his daily morning exercise. Jason stood upside down, stretching out a finger on each hand of his left and right hands and pressing them against the hard rock on the ground. His arms kept bending and then straightening to support all the weight of his body. Because of the exertion, Jason's entire face turned red and he was breathing heavily. The muscles on his arms were bulging like roots of an old tree. The veins swelled like earthworms swimming. A large amount of sweat gathered on Jason's head like a stream, then dripped down and splashed on the blue-gray rocks. With the addition of 10 times the gravity, the weight supported by Jason's 2 fingers has reached a terrifying more than 1,300 kilograms. Although such a weight can be picked up by some strong senior spiritual disciples, but if only 2 fingers are used to support it, even a strong man at the spiritual master level may break his finger bones under such great pressure. After all, holding something up and supporting it with 2 fingers are completely different concepts. 10 times gravity is still not enough. Feeling the huge pressure from his index finger, Jason gasped, shaking his head secretly. Although under such a strong gravity, Jason would be tired after every exercise. Panting, but very aware of his body, Jason understood that the gravity his body could bear had not yet reached the extreme. It's just that the gravity pendant made of the Philosopher's Stone in Jason's hand, and the material used to outline the spiritual magic circle is only the most basic earth element foundation liquid. Even if the Philosopher's Stone has a strong increase in the magic circle, the maximum is only it can only reach 10 times the gravity. Now that we have the Starry Sky Mithril and the 4th level Earth Spiritual Crystal, it seems that it is time to refine the gravity pendant again, but there are still a few materials missing, especially the blood of high-level Earth Spiritual Beasts. Jason was making plans silently in his heart. Master Jason, there is someone named Yenji looking for you at the gate of the manor. Just as Jason was exercising and thinking, Kathleen appeared at the door of the backyard. Seeing the strong muscles on Jason's body, Kathleen Celine couldn't help but blush slightly. 498, 499, 500. Jason counted silently in his mind. After completing 500, his body suddenly stopped and he slowly withdrew his input. Seeing the spiritual power in the gravity pendant, without the addition of gravity, his whole body couldn't help but feel light and somersault. Jason's whole body stood there as lightly as a fallen leaf. Yenji? Why did she come to me? Jason grabbed a large vat filled with water on the side with both hands. His muscles collapsed, and he shouted in his heart, but his hands were in vain. Wow! A whole tank of water suddenly poured like a waterfall on Jason's strong chest that had turned red and steaming due to exercise. It was February now, and the cold winter had not yet passed. The cold wind in the early morning was biting and freezing. The scalding body was aroused by the ice water. A normal person's body would probably not be able to bear it, no matter how strong he was, but Jason seemed to have no feeling at all. Taking a dry towel from the shelf nearby, Jason gently wiped his body and ordered, "Let them wait in the living room, I will be there soon." When Jason walked into the living room, Yenji was talking to Kai. Celine was chatting, and occasionally she let out a chuckle or two. Behind Yenji, Barton stood as straight as an old pine tree on a cliff. Next to Barton, there was a middle-aged man in his 40s, looking respectfully at the man sitting there with a smile on his face. Smiling Yenji. Master Jason. Seeing Jason come in, Yenji, who was sitting, stood up immediately, while Kathleen nodded to Jason and walked out. In Saha's manor, Kathleen is responsible for all logistical matters, including receiving guests. However, when Jason, Bisfam or Saha are talking to guests, Kathleen will naturally retreat. I wonder why Miss Yenji came to see me so early. Jason sat across from Yenji with a smile on his face. What? If nothing happens, can't I ask you, Master? Yenji joked. That's not true, but Jason touched his nose. To be honest, I'm quite busy and usually don't have much free time. In that case, I'll get straight to the point. Yan Ji felt resentful. He glanced at Jason, and then his expression gradually became serious. He pointed at the middle-aged man behind him and said, "This is Baron Phelan, the head of the Oliver auction house in Talon City, and my full name is Yan Ji. Oliver is the daughter of the patriarch of the Oliver family in the current kingdom. It turns out to be Baron Phelan. Nice to meet you." Jason handed over his hand. Jason and Xiao Bo had met the Phelan behind Yanji when they were at the Oliver auction house. Standing next to Saha, it turned out to be the person in charge of the Oliver auction house in Talon City. Let me tell you, no wonder Lord Sonus was so polite to Yanji yesterday, and he also had such a powerful guard as Barton. Jason understood something in his heart. As the richest family in the kingdom, the daughter of the patriarch of the Oliver family, the three largest families in the kingdom, Yanji's status is not even weaker than that of the princess of the kingdom of Orlando. I wonder what the reason is for Miss Yanji to come to me. Jason was a little confused. Since his rebirth, apart from selling a few bottles of soul-reviving potion at the Oliver auction house, he has no other connection with the Oliver family. Yes, but the spirit-reviving potion was made by himself. Except for a few people in Saha and Bisfamu, the others didn't know it at all. Jason was a little confused about Yanji's sudden visit. Yanji smiled and said, "I heard that Master Jason once auctioned 3 bottles of spirit-reviving potions at the Oliver auction house in Talon City. Our Oliver Chamber of Commerce will hold a large-scale auction in the Royal City in 3 months. I hope, Master Jason, we can provide some soul-returning potions. Our Oliver auction house will not charge any fees. All the proceeds from the auction of the soul-returning potions will be given to you, the Master. I wonder what the Master wants. Damn, let me tell you, it is indeed a soul-restoring potion. Potion, Bisfam and Saha, these 2 old bastards, no wonder when I asked about Yanji yesterday, those 2 old guys had such weird expressions. It turned out that they had sold me out a long time ago." Jason couldn't help but feel he was angry, but his face remained calm. "I can prepare the spirit-reviving potion, but if I help your Oliver Chamber of Commerce, what good will it do to me?" Jason understood the intentions of the Oliver family very well. Although the spirit-reviving potion is justed as a 3rd-level high-grade elixir, but the preparation difficulty is extremely high for elixir masters of this era. However, the efficacy of the elixir is extremely attractive to the elixirs. The Oliver family wants to use these auction items to improve the quality of elixirs. The popularity of this large auction. Jason is not short of money, and he has no pursuit of a luxurious life. Moreover, as a scarce commodity, Jason's potion is extremely valuable whenever it is sold. Although the price will be higher when it is sold at a large auction, it is also troublesome. For a lazy person like Jason, having one thing is better than having one thing less. After hearing what Jason said, Yanji's expression changed, and Barton's face on the side was also slightly moved. The last auction in Talon City saw the resurrection potion, which attracted the attention of the Oliver family before the Lunar New Year. After all, elixir is the most noble profession in the mainland, and a high-level elixir has the highest status in the family. The status is far greater than that of a powerful spiritual master. After careful investigation, the Oliver family's intelligence investigation revealed that the maker of the elixir was related to President Saha of the Talon City Elixir Union. After research, the Oliver family decided to let Yanji try their luck. As the richest family in the kingdom, which owns the largest chamber of commerce in the kingdom of Orlando, the Oliver family has a very good relationship with Bisfam and Saha, who are the elixirs of the kingdom's palace. Under Yanji's stalking, Bisfam and Saha finally told Yanji that the spirit-reviving potion was prepared by Jason, and then there was the scene where Yanji met Jason at the dinner party and rescued Jason. It's just that although Bisfam and Saha said that the spirit-reviving potion was prepared by Jason, Yanji still had some doubts in her heart. After all, Jason was too young. You must know that high-quality spirit-reviving potion, even if you are a person. Lord Rudolph, the #1 elixir master in the kingdom, may not be able to prepare it. Now that they have received affirmation from Jason, it is no wonder that Yenji and Barton are moved. A genius elixir who can prepare a spirit-reviving potion at such a young age, let alone the Kingdom of Orlando, even the four who have dominated the mainland for many years. The Great Empire is definitely an outstanding figure with amazing talents. I wonder what Master Jason wants in return? Yenji had a smile on her face. Whether it was for this auction or for other reasons, she could establish a relationship with a genius elixir master like Jason as soon as possible. It's worth letting the Oliver family pay some first. This time it was Jason's turn to be dumbfounded. He didn't expect Yenji to be so easy to talk to. After pondering for a moment, Jason said, "That's it. I need a bottle of the blood of a 4th-level Earth spirit beast in the near future. And Yalansi's blue star sand, it should be no problem based on the channels of your Oliver Chamber of Commerce. Of course, I will buy it at the original price. In fact, regardless of whether there are benefits or not, Jason will help Yenji. After all, Yenji was at the dinner party yesterday. I have also helped myself, and I have established a good relationship with the Oliver Chamber of Commerce of the Kingdom's first Chamber of Commerce. It will be more convenient if I need some special items and materials in the future." Jason didn't want to have to travel all over the Kingdom of Orlando just to find 1 or 2 ingredients when preparing the elixir. This would not only waste time but also waste energy. "That's no problem. I'll deliver it to you within 3 days." Yenji stood up and stretched out her hand, happy cooperation. The blood of 4th-level Earth spiritual beasts is easy to find. If it's not possible, just find an adventure team and send a mission. Soon, although blue star sand is relatively scarce, it is not difficult for the Oliver Chamber of Commerce, the first business family throughout the kingdom. Happy cooperation. Jason gently shook Yenji's boneless hand and let go in time before Yenji playfully scratched his palm. Seeing Jason's nonchalant look, Yenji showed an ambiguous smile on her face. Knowing that Yenji was deliberately teasing, Jason secretly shook his head. Such a charming beauty would probably be played to death by ordinary people, so he had better be careful. Of course, if the other party thinks that Jason is an indifferent young man, then be careful not to play with fire. By the way, the materials for the soul-reviving potion are also provided by your Oliver auction house. Jason said calmly. There are no precious items in the materials for preparing the spirit-reviving potion, and it is not difficult to buy them, but Jason is just too lazy to look for them. No problem. Master Jason, if you need any help in the future, just tell me, Barton, if you can help, Barton, will definitely help. Seeing Jason agreeing to Yenji's request, Barton said with a smile on his face, with a look in his eyes. With a hint of respect. If Barton called Master Jason at the dinner yesterday just out of politeness, now Barton's words have already brought a hint of respect and sincerity, and the look he looks at Jason is as unmistakable as he looks at the elixir masters like Bispham. Stand on an equal footing, even look up to him a little bit, instead of seeing Jason as a junior. Facing a genius spiritual pharmacist who could prepare a spirit-reviving potion at such a young age, even though Barton was a senior sect spiritual master, he had nothing to be proud of. Haha, Brother Barton is so polite. If it hadn't been for Brother Barton yesterday, I might not have been able to come back alive. Barton's eyes showed a fierce light and he snorted, then Othello is too shameless. If you had suffered yesterday, Master, what kind of injury, even if Othello dies, it will be difficult to compensate for it. Everyone then chatted casually for a while, and after sending Yenji, Barton and others away, Jason went directly to Saha's laboratory, only to find that as usual in the bustling laboratory, Bispham and Saha were not inside at the moment. Kathleen, where are Bispham and Saha? Jason found Kathleen. Master Bispham said that there was an emergency at the Sith Spiritual Power Academy, and he went back first. Master Saha also went back to the Medicine Masters Guild and said that there was also an emergency. Is there an emergency? Jason's face was filled with anger. These two old men guys, if there is an emergency, Will you take away all the materials and instruments for preparing the awakening potion and tranquilizing liquid in the laboratory? If these two old guys have the ability, don't come back and deal with them later. Jason was not really angry. He also believed that Bispham and Saha had no ill intentions towards him. However, it would be a pity to waste such a good blackmail opportunity. Jason sneered secretly in his heart, causing the two obscene figures who were secretly preparing elixirs in Dean Bispham's laboratory of the Sith Academy of Spiritual Power to sneeze twice. What Jason didn't expect was that on the morning after Yen Ji was sent away, the Oliver Chamber of Commerce in Talon City sent someone to deliver the materials for preparing a spirit-reviving potion and a bottle of the 4th-level Earth Spiritual Beast Iron Rock Lion blood, and in the afternoon, the most difficult-to-find Blue Star Sand was also delivered to Jason's hands. The efficiency was so fast that Jason couldn't help but secretly smack his tongue. Before the attendants from Oliver's auction arrived, Jason was making preliminary preparations for the rejuvenation potion. After getting the Blue Star Sand to send the attendants away, Jason told Kathleen not to be disturbed and got angry. Without even having time to take a breath, he couldn't wait to walk into the laboratory. There was no one in the entire laboratory. Jason took off the gravity pendant made of the Philosopher's Stone from his wrist with confidence, and then put it into a colorless solution on the side. The originally transparent solution suddenly turned into there is a hint of light yellow, which is the reason why the earth element base liquid in the pattern originally engraved on the surface of the gravity pendant has melted. After the earth element base liquid in the pattern on the surface of the gravity pendant completely disappeared, Jason fished the gravity pendant out of the solution, and then took the starry sky mithril he had obtained from Bispham and Shahana a few days ago from his body. And he took out the 4th order earth crystal stone. In Jason's training in this life, the exercise of the body is very important. If you want the body to become stronger, you must continue to exercise. The gravity pendant can easily do this. This makes the body constantly under the pressure of gravity, and then under the influence of the bodybuilding spirit liquid, it is undergoing slow transformation every moment. It's just that Jason, who has just come to this world, does not have enough strength and financial resources to own an alchemical weapon. The appearance of the Philosopher's Stone alleviates Jason's urgent need. However, with the improvement of Jason's strength, the gravity pendant, which is made of a simple gravity array engraved with the Philosopher's Stone and earth element base liquid, and can provide a maximum gravity of 10 times, can no longer meet Jason's requirements. Jason, who wanted to improve the gravity pendant, had been suffering from lack of good materials until the appearance of star mithril. The reason why the Philosopher's Stone is called the most excellent material in the alchemical world is that one of its most important characteristics is stability. Whether it is to enchant a spirit, carve a magic circle, make a talisman or create a spiritual weapon, adding a small amount of the Philosopher's Stone can bring extremely high stability and greatly improve the success rate. Therefore, Jason, who owns such a large Philosopher's Stone, does not have to worry about it failing due to unstable spiritual power when making a gravity pendant and engraving a magic circle. The gravity pendant made of the Philosopher's Stone as the main material, the stability of the gravity array has reached an outrageous level. What Jason is considering is how to maximize the effectiveness of the gravity array. Starry Sky Mithril happened to appear in front of Jason at this time. Starry Sky Mithril is also a top-quality material in the alchemical world. Its effect is to improve the efficacy of alchemical items and increase the alchemical effects of magic circles, enchantments, sealing skills, etc. However, its stability is quite poor. The vast majority of alchemists have a love-hate attitude towards Starry Sky Mithril. On the one hand, it can greatly improve the effects of magic circles, spirit enchantments, etc., but on the other hand, its addition will greatly reduce the success rate and make it impossible to have both. Unfortunately, now it meets Jason, who has the Philosopher's Stone. No one knew that Jason, who was known as the strongest man in Stern Continent in his previous life, was not only a 9th-level elixir master, but also an alchemist master. In fact, the knowledge in alchemy and elixir science is quite similar, and most elixir masters know some alchemy to some extent. Holding the fourth-order earth crystal in his hand, Jason came to a crystal bottle filled with transparent liquid that shone like stars, and gently threw away the fourth-order earth crystal. Go in. Laugh. A large amount of silver light in the solution adhered to the crystal stone thrown in by Jason. Amidst the bursts of chirping sounds, the fourth-order earth element spirit crystal dissolved at a speed visible to the naked eye. In a moment, the fourth-order earth spiritual crystal, has disappeared without a trace. A layer of dark yellow viscous liquid flows slightly at the bottom of the crystal bottle, reflecting bursts of faint yellow halo. And on the upper layer of the dark yellow liquid, there is a large colorless, transparent liquid. That layer of dark yellow viscous liquid was the earth element essence contained in the previous fourth-order earth element spiritual crystal. Jason took a moonstone, and then put the moonstone into the transparent solution in the upper layer of the crystal bottle. After a violent boiling, only the layer of the solution that Jason extracted was left in the entire crystal bottle. Dark yellow earth element essence. Immediately afterwards, Jason found a small furnace from the laboratory and put the piece of starry sky mithril into the furnace. Jason injected a spiritual power into the runes engraved on the furnace, and then with the input of Jason's spiritual power, a light red light emitted from the runes, and the temperature of the entire furnace continued to slowly increase under Jason's maintenance. Jason's entire process is extremely skillful and orderly, giving people a pleasing feeling. Slowly, the starry sky mithril slowly melted under the continuous high temperature provided by the furnace, turning into a pool of silver liquid like mercury. In the liquid, some light spots were swimming there, like at night, like stars in the sky. After the starry sky mithril was completely melted, Jason stopped providing spiritual power to the furnace, picked up the furnace with alchemical tongs, and poured the starry sky mithril into a crystal bottle with a dark yellow layer of earth element essence. Tisk, the two intersecting solutions reacted sharply, and a large amount of earth spiritual elements escaped from the crystal bottle. After the original dark yellow earth element essence and the silver-white starry sky mithril solution merged, they turned into its bright gold, with dots of silver dotted in it, extremely magnificent. Jason had already seen such a beautiful liquid that looked like an illusion. He poured the bright golden liquid into the crystal box containing the Philosopher's Stone without even appreciating it. After the bright golden liquid was poured into the crystal box, it merged directly with the gravity pendant made of the Philosopher's Stone. Like a swimming snake, it spiritually wrapped around the Philosopher's Stone. The made bracelet slowly seeped into it. This is another characteristic of the Philosopher's Stone as a top-quality material. It can blend naturally with almost all materials on the continent without the need for deliberate integration. But at this moment, Jason's mind was no longer on the Philosopher's Stone. The bag of blue star sand that had just been sent by the attendant appeared in his hand. Taking an Erlenmeyer flask from the experimental table, Jason held the mouth of the bag with one hand and shook it slightly. Then a phantom flew through the air, and a small amount of the vibrated blue star sand had already entered the Erlenmeyer flask. A little bit of blue star sand cast a blue halo in the conical flask, and Jason's keen spiritual sense could easily perceive the pure spiritual power contained in it. As soon as the blue star sand entered the conical flask, Jason took out the crystal bottle containing the blood of the fourth-level earth spiritual beast Iron Rock Lion that had been sent by Oliver Auction House in the morning. Jason's left hand vibrated violently, and then spun into the air. A ball of Iron Rock Lion blood that was completely fused with earth elements flew out of the bottle mouth and entered the Erlenmeyer flask. A faint smell of blood spreads in the laboratory, and more of it is a large amount of earth spiritual elements. If some peak elixir masters in future generations see Jason's action, they may not be able to help but marvel. During the preparation process of the blood solution, the proportions of blue star sand and Iron Rock Lion blood have been strictly verified. Yes, only Jason, the founder of the technological stream in the elixir world, can mix the most perfect proportion of blue star sand and Iron Rock Lion blood at will without using any weighing instruments. The Erlenmeyer flask kept trembling and flying in Jason's hand, completely turning into a ball of light curtain, with no visible appearance. At the same time, a trace of spiritual power entered the Erlenmeyer flask with Jason's right hand, accelerating the blue star sand. Fusion with the iron rock lion's blood, the precise spiritual sense can feel every change of spiritual elements in the Erlenmeyer flask. Until the last piece of blue star sand was completely dissolved in the iron rock lion's blood, Jason's right hand that transformed into a phantom suddenly stopped. The blood that was originally red and smelled of blood has now turned into a pool of blood with a fresh smell. Light blue solution. Jason put the prepared blood solution aside, and then took out a crystal-carved crystal pen from his body. Refining has reached this point, and it has reached the last step, which is also the most critical step. The middle of the crystal pen is hollow, and the entire pen is covered with fine lines. Jason put the crystal pen into the light blue blood solution and dipped it gently. The thick blood solution with spiritual power fluctuations was released. It entered the hollow pen core on its own. Jason picked up the completely integrated Philosopher's Stone, his right hand flashed like flying, and the tip of the crystal pen jumped instantly on the surface of the Philosopher's Stone. Under Jason's spiritual input and fine spiritual control, thick or thin blue lines are constantly forming on the surface of the Philosopher's Stone, forming complex, obscure, and mysterious magic circle circuits. If the gravity array that Jason initially carved on the Philosopher's Stone with earth elemental fluid was a hut, the array that Jason built on the Philosopher's Stone now is a modern high-rise building. At this moment, every circuit on the magic circle drawn by Jason is more profound than the gravity magic circle engraved on the Philosopher's Stone before. Even the most advanced rune masters must be careful and consider carefully, and dare not be careless in the slightest. The inscription circle was beating like flying under Jason's pen. In just the blink of an eye, the spiritual patterns on the Philosopher's Stone have begun to take shape. Big drops of sweat dripped down from Jason's forehead. Profound, detailed, and complex rune lines continued to appear under Jason's pen. The blood solution in the crystal pen also continued to drop at the same time. The moment the blood solution in the crystal pen dried up, Jason carved the last node. A subtle blue light flashed quietly from the gravity pendant in his hand. The entire complex magic circle was under Jason's last node. Completely linked. Jason took a long breath and looked at the gravity pendant on his hand. It no longer looked ugly and dark at first. The gold and black luster was dark and deep, and the fluorescent blue lines were delicate and delicate. The entire bracelet revealed a mysterious and gorgeous atmosphere. It's finally done. Jason suppressed his excitement and put the bracelet back on his left hand. A stream of spiritual power flowed from the meridians of Jason's left hand into the brand new gravity pendant. Buzz seemed to be a ringing sound in Jason's ears, and a khaki light flashed quietly on the lines on the gravity pendant, and Jason felt a terrifying pressure sweeping through his body. Pung! Jason suddenly knelt down on one knee, hit his knee hard on the ground, and supported the ground with his hands. The hard rock floor in the laboratory suddenly shattered. Okay, such a strong gravity, at least 30 times the gravity. Jason looked horrified. He could feel that his body was groaning under the strong gravity, and his chest and back seemed to be pressed together. It was huge. The pressure made it almost difficult for him to breathe. It seems that the spiritual power input is too large, but I don't know how many times the current gravity pendant can reach the maximum gravity. Although it was extremely uncomfortable, Jason understood that the gravity multiple that the gravity pendant could achieve was far from reaching the limit. Feeling furious, Jason not only did not weaken the spiritual power input into the gravity pendant, but instead increased the input of spiritual power. He wanted to see his limit. What's going on? The gravity on his body continued to soar upwards, and Jason felt that all the muscles in his body were shaking. From the inside out, his entire body was shattered under the pressure of huge gravity. Jason raised the gravity around his body to 50 times in vain. Hiss! The skin on Jason's body began to crack, and traces of blood seeped out from the surface of Jason's skin. The skin was constantly tearing, and not only the surface of the body, but also the internal organs were slowly falling under the terrifying gravity. Collapse, rupture. Under 50 times gravity, Jason's body weight reached a terrifying nearly 7,000 kilograms. Jason felt heart-wrenching pain,